Georgetown, a neighborhood of Washington, D.C., nestled just above the Potomac River, is home to Georgetown University, one of America's most prestigious universities. The area is also home to many politicians, writers, and other well-known people. Georgetown may be best known as the setting of perhaps the scariest film of all time, The Exorcist. Originally a novel, it was written by William Peter Blatty in 1971. Blatty was a student at Georgetown in 1949 when he heard of a story about a 14-year-old Mount Rainier boy who was supposedly possessed. Blatty changed the setting to Georgetown and made the main character a 12-year-old girl. The film was released on December 26, 1973. It is consistently ranked in the top 3 scariest movie lists, if not the scariest film ever. A great story of good against evil. It follows famous actress Chris McNeil during her ordeal with her daughter Reagan. Reagan becomes possessed by a demon after playing with a Ouija board, and doctors are powerless to help her. Chris McNeil finally seeks the help of a Jesuit priest and ultimately has an exorcism performed on her daughter. Reaction to the film was incredible. People waited in line for hours and were lined up around the block to get into theaters. Well-known Reverend Billy Graham said that there was evil inside the actual rolls of films used to shoot the movie. After shooting was completed, the film was appropriately edited at 666 Fifth Avenue in New York City. Shot in the fall, Georgetown's beautiful scenery and architecture made it a great place for a story of demonic possession. Take a look at some of the locations that were made famous in one of the greatest horror movies of all time.
You ever heard of exorcism?
Take it! Stop! It's burning!
The power of Christ compels you!
Healy Hall, perhaps the most recognizable landmark on the Georgetown campus, serves as the physical center to this famous university. Built between 1877 and 1879, and named a National Historic Landmark in 1987, Healy Hall overlooks the intersection of 37th and O Streets in Northwest Washington, D.C. Housing the university president's office, a cast-iron library, and the famous Gaston Hall, it is the imposing Gothic feel of Healy Hall that made it a great setting for the film. It was here, outside Healy Hall, that director William Friedkin filmed his famous movie-within-a-movie scene. Chris McNeil, who is played by Ellen Burstyn, is being directed in a scene of her movie, Crash Course, where she is protesting the closure and destruction of Healy Hall. She is directed by Burke Dennings, played by actor Jack McGowan, a close family friend who later meets his fate on the Exorcist stairs. But in this famous scene, Healy Hall is as much a character in the film as Chris McNeil. We see Chris walk away from Burke, past the statue of John Carroll, founder of Georgetown University, down the courtyard, and then up these stairs. Joining a gathering of protesters, we watch her grab a megaphone and begin shouting out the crowd's demands. The scene here today looks very much the same as it did in the film, with very little having changed in the intervening decades. During the scene, we see a shot of a smiling priest. This is Father Karras, played by Jason Miller. He works as a Jesuit psychiatrist and will perform Reagan's exorcism later in the film. We see him walking off the fictional movie set down this same path, with Healy Hall looming in the background. We are now between Healy Hall and the Lowinger Library. Healy is on the right and the library is to the left. Lowinger was opened in 1970 and is the main library on campus. It was here in the film and looks almost the same to this day. The only minor changes are the trees that have sprung up here to the left. These are the same stairs where we see Chris McNeil begin her journey homeward after her day on the movie set. She would have walked south from the set at Healy Hall and down these stairs. She has a car waiting for her at the corner of 37th and N Streets, Northwest, but declines the ride and decides to walk home. These stairs also foreshadow a later scene in the film when Father Karras makes his way to the McNeil house to perform the exorcism. The mist and rolling fog in that scene echo the mood of the tormented priest as he prepares to carry out the sacred rites. Georgetown in the fall made the perfect setting for The Exorcist. The federal architecture harkens back to the early days of the United States, a time when exorcisms and witch hunts were not uncommon practices. As we follow Chris home, we recall that beautiful fall day in the film when we hear the famous Tubular Bells song. We discover that it's Halloween when we see children running up and down the streets in their costumes. When we see her next, she's turning right onto 36 from P Street, this very corner. Continuing down 36th Street will take us to the McNeil house. In the film, this was shot as though it were a direct route, which, in fact, is not the case. If she were to begin walking east on N Street, it would not have been possible for her to turn right onto 36 from P Street. She would have had to walk north on 37th, turn right on P Street, and then right onto 36th Street. All part of movie magic. We are looking at a small bridge which crosses over the C&O Canal in Georgetown. This bridge is just a few steps down the hill from the intersection of M and 34th Streets. The bridge was in a scene where Chris McNeil meets Father Karras for the first time. As they get acquainted, she asks the awkward and shocking question about how to get an exorcism performed. Karras scoffs at this at first until Chris breaks down into tears explaining the situation to him. This location is basically the same today as it was in the film. The bridge has been painted red, and there is now an informational sign on it. The staircase you see Chris and Karras walk down is no longer there. Although this could be considered the most out-of-the-way location, it is not even a mile from the Georgetown University campus where the majority of the film is shot. Now a return to Healy Hall, but this time inside. We're looking at the east wing of the building. This is the same spot where we see Father Karras on his way to the Cardinal's office. He has spoken with Chris McNeil and has come face to face with the possessed Reagan. At this point, he seems to believe an exorcism may be her only hope. After Karras comes down this hallway, he walks up this ornate carpeted staircase, which leads him to the Cardinal's office. This staircase has 2 flights of stairs that lead to the second floor of Healy. The second floor houses the majority of the university faculty. The next shot in the film shows Karras in the Cardinal's office. This is, in fact, the school president's office. As you look up the stairs, you'll see a painting on the wall of the founder of Georgetown University, John Carroll. This is Dahlgren Chapel on the campus of Georgetown University, a location that ended up causing some controversy. Healy Hall basically wraps around this church, and there is a small courtyard and fountain which you see. This is the main church on campus, was built in 1893, and is host to countless weddings. This location is very much the same from the film with only minor changes. There are stairs now at the main entrance and a raised ledge in the background. The fountain you now see is also new. In the film, we see a priest walking with flowers through the courtyard past the entrance and then to a side door around back. In the next scene, we see the priest inside the church, kneeling at the altar and dropping off the first basket of flowers. He then walks over to a statue and is horrified at what he sees. A statue of Mary has been horribly desecrated. The university did not give the film crew permission to shoot in the chapel because they deemed the scene to be too blasphemous. Another almost identical church in New York was used for the interior shots. Take a look inside the church one day and you will notice how similar the 2 interiors look. You're looking at a Georgetown location that was used extensively throughout the movie. This is the house that Chris and Reagan McNeil live in, here at the corner of 36 and Prospect Streets. This is where Reagan plays with the Ouija board and becomes possessed by Captain Howdy. It's also the location of the film's most memorable scenes. We all remember the head spin, the pea soup vomiting, the exorcism itself, and the terrifying spider walk from the re-release of The Version You've Never Seen. Although this was the actual house used in the film, major differences were made from what you see now. In the movie, there is a section of the house that extends to the Exorcist stairs, which allowed Karras to jump out the window and fall to his death. That would not have been possible with the original and current design. The addition they built for the movie gave it the L shape you saw. You may also remember a scene where Chris is exploring the attic after hearing noises. She is in a walk-up attic. The current house has a flat roof, which would make that impossible. A raised tin roof was built for that scene. One of the entrances is on the right of the house, but is not seen in the movie. The entrance we see in the movie is there today, along with the driveway. Today there is a high black fence around the house. In the film, there's a very small brick wall with iron gates allowing us to see into the property. This house was the spot for one of the greatest scenes in horror movie history. When Father Merrin arrives to perform the exorcism, he gets out of a cab at night and stands at the entrance of the house. He is bathed in bright light emanating from Reagan's bedroom window. It is a beautiful yet haunting use of light on film and is the image you see on almost every poster and photo for the film. While all the exterior shots were filmed here, the interior scenes were done at a studio in New York City.
I am at, without a doubt, the most famous landmark in Georgetown. These are the Exorcist stairs. It's a 72-step stone staircase built right in between a gas station and the Georgetown car barn. At the top of the stairs is 36th Street, and just in front of me is M Street. These were actually known as the Hitchcock stairs before the film's release, and they were involved in one of horror movies' greatest moments. Nearing the end of the exorcism, Father Merrin is dead, and Father Karras seems to be unable to free Reagan. He gets the demon to leave Reagan and take over his body. Still able to realize what has happened, he takes his own life by jumping out of her bedroom window and falling to his death on these stairs. We found out earlier in the film that movie director Burke Dennings died on these stairs as well, presumably killed by Reagan. For the scene, the movie crew padded the stairs with a half-inch of rubber, allowing the stuntman to fall down them. The rubber is actually visible if you look closely. When we see Father Dyer giving Karras his last rites at the bottom of the stairs, we see his hand shaking terribly. William Friedkin was not happy with the actor's performance in the previous take, so he slapped him across the face before that take, shaking up the actor and getting the results he wanted. Supposedly, Georgetown students were charging people $5 to come and watch the scene being shot. It's hard to walk by these stairs and not think about The Exorcist. Most of the people you see here are running up and down them getting a workout, but you may also see somebody taking a photograph or writing something on the stairs.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.